This is a short video for Chapter 15, and it is the problem from the end of Chapter 15:12, and it asks us to overload several operators, but we're only going to do 3 in this, and the programs have gotten so long that I can't actually create them, so what we're going to do is just take a look at it. And we're going to start with main, even though it won't make a lot of sense as far as the calls, but at least I can explain what's going on. I do have a class file called matrix, and the first 3 statements here in main are actually instantiating objects of matrix 1, 2, and 3. The parameters that are being passed in are the number of rows and columns. Then I've got a call to a set matrix for both matrix 1 and 2, where I'm actually going to loop through the dynamic arrays and put in the values for those 2 matrices, and then of course a clear screen. Then I'm going to output matrix 1 and then matrix 2, but notice how different the call looks. No for loops here, nothing, because I have overloaded the insertion operator in such a way that it will actually call it from the class, and that's where the loops actually reside. Then I've also overloaded the plus in the class itself, so I can do something that normally I couldn't do here. I can add matrix 1 to matrix 2, giving me matrix 3. Then I'm going to print out matrix 3 by, again, the overloaded operators from my class that will allow me to loop through and print out the matrix. So you can see a little bit of how it's going to look and how it looks different than the way I would typically have to do it in a program. Of course, the bulk of that code is actually written in the header file, so we'll look at it now. And in my header file, I have called the class matrix type, and the first 2 methods here are friend methods because the insertion and the extraction operators have to be friend functions in order to be overloaded. On the other hand, the plus can be either a friend or a public function in the class itself, and there are a couple of other operators that can only be friend functions to be overloaded. The parentheses, square brackets, the equal sign, you'd have to look them up to get exactly which ones are allowed to be handled which way. Then in my public section, I'm dynamically allocating a 2-dimensional array, and I've got a row size and a column size variable. And then I've got a call to the constructor where my maximum size is 10 by 10. Although if you recall, I'm passing in 2 by 2, so 2 rows by 2 columns. Then a call to void set matrix, and then I'm also showing here the function that's going to overload the plus. So the first function in my implementation here is my constructor, where I'm dynamically declaring a new integer array based on the row size that's passed in from the user, or in our case from the actual parameters that come with the instantiation. And then of course I step through the rows and dynamically allocate the memory for the columns and then generate the entire array. Then set matrix is just asking the user, once we know how many rows and columns we have, to enter the data for the matrix. Then I'm overloading the plus operator. So here's where I'm actually stepping through the arrays, where I have my row and column size set up. And as I go through here, notice the parameter. I have to use operator here to indicate that I'm overloading an operator, and also that I have to have the right op is my parameter that's coming in. So what I'm doing is stepping through the array, and I'm actually adding the element of the first array to the first element of the first array to the first element of the second array, second element of the first array to second element of the second array, and so on. So by virtue of the plus here and the looping process, I can just simply add them here, and this calls, of course, the function and stores it in the temporary array for me. Then I'm overloading both the insertion and the extraction operator. So here's the insertion operator, where again I have to have the word operator, and it is of type OStream, and it's going to be my data out, and then I have my matrix type and the reference to my matrix, the address of the matrix. So I'm just here setting up the arrays, the loops rather, so that I can print the arrays. Then the input operator, or the extraction operator, same thing, it's iStream, the input stream, and the word operator, and then which one am I actually working with here, and then I'm passing in as a reference data in as well as my matrix, and then I did print some information just to label it, and then step through the for loops to actually print out the matrix. But what that did was, in main, when I actually tell it to do that, all I have to do is use my operators and then put in the names of my matrices, and it goes back to that class code to actually do it. So it does make this look much simpler as far as manipulating a matrix. So I'm going to run it now, and of course I am passing in by default here 2 by 2s. My arrays are going to be 2 by 2. So here's the screen, the call to the class that's going to let me input with set matrix my data. So it has 2 rows by 2 columns. So I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my 4 elements. 2 times 2 is 4. And then the second call comes for my next matrix. So we'll do 6, 8, 10, and 12. My 4 elements for my second matrix, and then it cleared the screen, and then I'm actually calling using my insertion operator for it to print matrix 1, then to print matrix 2, and then I'm going to add the 2 together and print them out. So that's what you see here. Here's matrix 1, matrix 2, and then added together to form matrix 3. So you can clearly see how that has worked. 1 and 6 is 7, 2 and 8 is 10, 3 and 10, 13, 4 and 12, 16. So I've managed to add 2 matrices together as well as input and print them with very little code in the main program, since I'm using my class code with overridden operators.